Have you ever heard of a bird so mysterious, so extraordinary, that it seems to belong more to dreams than to reality? A bird that never truly dies because from the very moment it falls, it is destined to rise again. Welcome, everyone, to today's journey into myth and imagination. We are going to explore one of the most captivating creatures ever described in human history, the phoenix, the legendary bird that is said to be reborn from its own ashes. From the deserts of ancient Egypt to the grand stories of Greece and Rome, the phoenix has fascinated poets, philosophers, and storytellers for thousands of years. It is not an ordinary bird, but a symbol that transcends cultures. Imagine a creature with feathers that shimmer like gold and crimson flames, wings that catch the light like the setting sun, and a cry that carries the weight of eternity. To the ancients, this was not just a beautiful vision, but a reminder of something far greater: the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. But what makes the phoenix so unforgettable? Why did so many civilizations cling to this story of a bird that perishes in fire, only to rise again in radiant glory? Part of the answer lies in our human need for hope. Life is never free of endings. Seasons change, stars burn out, people leave, empires rise and fall. And yet, hidden within every ending is the seed of a new beginning. The phoenix embodies that truth better than any other symbol. When we think of the phoenix, we are not simply thinking of a bird. We are looking at a story that mirrors our own struggles. Just like the phoenix, we sometimes face moments when it feels as though everything is falling apart. Failure, heartbreak, or even the quiet weight of time can leave us feeling like we have burned down to nothing. But the legend tells us, that is not the end. Out of those ashes, a new version of ourselves can emerge stronger, wiser, and ready to soar again. This is why emperors kept the phoenix as a royal emblem, why alchemists saw it as the key to transformation, and why today, we still say rise like a phoenix whenever someone makes an incredible comeback. It is a story that never fades, because it speaks to something universal in all of us. So, as we begin our exploration today, I invite you to see the phoenix not as a distant legend, but as a mirror. A mirror of resilience, of rebirth, and of the unstoppable spirit of life. Stay with me, because in the next part of our story, we will dive deeper into how ancient cultures described this creature, the mysteries of its fiery death, and the wisdom hidden in its miraculous return. Now, before we go any further, there is something important to understand. The phoenix is not a bird you could find in a forest, nor one that scientists have studied in nature. It is a creature of the imagination, born not of feathers and bone, but of story and meaning. Its power does not lie in biology, but in symbolism. The ancients never intended the phoenix to be read as a literal species of bird. Instead, they created it as a metaphor, a way to speak about forces far greater than any single creature. Think of it as a living allegory. The fire, the ashes, and the rebirth were poetic tools used to capture truths about existence, about renewal, and about the human spirit. Why do humans invent symbols like this? Because certain ideas are too vast, too abstract, to express in plain words. How do you explain the mystery of time? How do you capture the feeling of hope after despair, or the resilience of life itself? For the Egyptians, the Greeks, and many others, the answer was simple: you do not explain it, you show it, through a myth. And so, the phoenix became a universal story of transformation. This is why the phoenix legend has survived across continents and centuries. Its story was never meant to be about feathers catching fire in a literal sense. Instead, it was always about the cycle of destruction and creation that we see everywhere in the world around us. The phoenix is the burning sunset that fades, only to be followed by the rising dawn. It is the forest that perishes in flames, only to grow back richer with life. It is the soul of a person who falls into hardship, and somehow emerges stronger, renewed, and unbroken. In this way, the phoenix is not just a story about a bird, it is a story about us. The myth carries the message that we, too, can endure endings without fearing them. Because every ending carries within it the possibility of a new beginning. That is why this symbol has been invoked again and again, in religion, in literature, in art, and even in modern culture. From temples to poetry to films, the phoenix keeps appearing, reminding us that we are more than the losses we suffer. So, when we talk about the phoenix, we should not ask, did this bird really exist? The better question is, what truth does this bird represent? And the answer is powerful. It represents the eternal truth that life is not a straight line but a circle, that destruction is never the final word, and that rebirth is always possible. And as we continue our journey, we will see how different civilizations describe this idea in their own ways, how Egypt imagined a solar bird of eternity, how Greece told of its fiery nest, and how later cultures wove their own meanings into this timeless myth. If the phoenix is not a literal bird, but a symbol, then what exactly is it symbolizing? To answer that, we need only to look at the world around us, because the phoenix is, in many ways, the living echo of nature's cycles. Think of the rising and setting of the sun. Each day begins with the brilliance of dawn, climbs into the warmth of noon, then fades into twilight. At night, the sun seems gone, swallowed by darkness. Yet without fail, it returns in the morning, blazing once again across the horizon. To ancient people, this was no ordinary rhythm. It was a daily miracle. The phoenix, with its fiery death and glowing rebirth, was seen as the perfect mirror of this eternal pattern. And the sun is not the only cycle. The seasons, too, tell the same story. In spring, life bursts forth with blossoms and fresh green. Summer strengthens that vitality with warmth and abundance. But then comes autumn, when leaves fall, fields grow empty, and the world seems to slip into decline. By winter, the landscape lies bare and lifeless, as if nature itself has perished. Yet, just when it seems final, spring returns. The soil awakens, trees bloom again, and life rises from the cold ashes of winter. The phoenix embodies this very rhythm, the eternal assurance that endings are never permanent. Even the forest fire, something that seems catastrophic, can be understood through the phoenix. Flames consume the trees, reducing them to charred remains. And yet, out of those ashes, new growth eventually emerges, stronger, richer, more vibrant than before. The ancients may not have spoken in modern scientific terms, but they observed enough to understand, destruction is often the first step toward renewal. And then, of course, there is us. Human life itself follows a similar rhythm. We are born, we grow, we age, and eventually, our time ends. But across cultures, people have believed that life does not stop there. Instead, it transforms into memory, into spirit, into something unseen but enduring. The phoenix became a way of telling that story. It is the soul's sunrise after its sunset. What makes this cycle so powerful is its universality. Whether you were a farmer in the Nile Valley, a philosopher in Athens, or a poet in Rome, you witnessed these patterns every single day. The phoenix was not some faraway legend, but a familiar truth wrapped in a fiery, unforgettable image. It reassured people that even in the darkest night, morning would come. That even in the harshest winter, spring was waiting. So when we hear of the phoenix rising from ashes, we are really hearing the story of the universe itself, a universe built not on final endings, but on eternal return. That is why the phoenix feels timeless. It is not just a myth, it is nature speaking through myth, reminding us that renewal is woven into the very fabric of existence. If cycles of nature explain why the phoenix was imagined, then fire explains how it transforms. For the phoenix, flames are not an ending, but a gateway. In most legends, the phoenix does not simply collapse from age. Instead, when its long life is coming to a close, it seeks out fire, sometimes building a nest of fragrant wood, sometimes igniting itself in a blaze so bright it can be seen from afar. To us, fire often feels like destruction. It devours wood, melts metal, and turns everything it touches into ash. But to the ancients, fire was never just a force of ruin, it was also a force of cleansing. It purified, renewed, and prepared the way for something new. This is why the phoenix is described as burning itself. It is not a tragic death, it is a ritual. By stepping willingly into the flames, the bird chooses transformation. Out of the ashes, a new chick emerges. Fresh and radiant, carrying the memory of its past but the strength of a new beginning. The symbolism here is powerful. Fire burns away the old, the weaknesses, the limitations, the decay that time has left behind. And in doing so, it makes space for the new. We see this same principle in countless traditions. In some cultures, fire was part of ceremonies to cleanse the spirit. In others, it symbolized the triumph of light over darkness. Even today, we speak of being forged in fire, as if hardship itself can shape and strengthen us. The phoenix is the ultimate embodiment of that idea. But what makes the phoenix even more remarkable is its choice. Unlike a forest consumed by lightning, or a city destroyed by accident, the phoenix steps into the fire willingly. This is not destruction forced upon it, it is transformation embraced. That choice is a reminder for us as well. In life, we cannot avoid every challenge, every hardship, every burning moment that tests us. But we can decide how to face them. We can choose to let the flames of difficulty consume us, or we can walk into them with courage, knowing that on the other side, we can emerge renewed. It is no surprise that so many people have connected with this story through history. Alchemists in the Middle Ages saw the phoenix's fire as a symbol of transformation, the same way base metals might be purified into gold. Writers and poets used the flames to speak of passion, resilience, and rebirth. Even in modern culture, when someone makes an incredible comeback, we still say they rose from the ashes. The fire is not their end, it is their beginning. So when you imagine the phoenix, do not just picture a bird engulfed in flames. Picture a being that understands something we often forget, that endings can be embraced. Because they carry within them the promise of new life. Fire, to the phoenix, is not death. It is renewal. From the moment the phoenix enters the fire, a transformation begins. To an outside observer, it might look like the end, feathers reduced to smoke, wings collapsing into sparks, the proud body consumed until nothing remains but a pile of ashes. And yet, in this very moment of apparent death, the greatest miracle occurs. Out of those ashes stirs new life. The rebirth of the phoenix is not slow or uncertain. Ancient storytellers described it as immediate, almost wondrous. From the smoldering nest, a small chick emerges, fragile, but radiant, glowing with the fire of new beginnings. In some legends, it takes a short time to grow. In others, it instantly spreads its wings, as glorious as before. Either way, the message is clear: what seemed to be destruction was, in truth, preparation for renewal. This death and rebirth cycle made the phoenix one of the most enduring symbols across cultures. To the Egyptians, who first told stories of a solar bird, it reflected the sun's daily death at night and its rebirth at dawn. To the Greeks, the phoenix was proof that even in destruction, life has a way of returning. And to later Christian writers, the phoenix became a powerful image of resurrection, of faith in life after death. But let us step back and think about why this idea resonates so deeply. Humans have always struggled with the mystery of endings. We grieve when something we love comes to a close. We fear the unknown that follows loss, whether it is the death of a loved one, the collapse of a dream, or the changes that come with time. The phoenix answers that fear with hope. It tells us, endings are not absolute. Out of destruction can come creation. Out of death can come new life. This theme appears everywhere in our world. Think of seeds, which must break apart in the soil before sprouting into new plants. Think of stars, which explode in violent supernovas, scattering the elements that form new planets, new suns, and even the building blocks of life itself. Even in the smallest cycles, like the way our bodies heal after being injured, we see echoes of the phoenix. Something must be broken down for something stronger to rise. What makes the phoenix so extraordinary is that it embodies this universal truth in one breathtaking image, a bird that dies, only to be born again. The ashes, far from being the final remains, are the soil of new existence. The flames, far from being destructive, are the womb of renewal. This is why the phoenix has inspired so many generations. It does not deny the pain of endings, it acknowledges them. But it also insists that beyond the ashes lies a new dawn. And that message continues to give people strength. Even today, in moments when everything feels lost. So, when we picture the phoenix rising again, we are not just watching a bird take flight. We are witnessing one of the oldest and most powerful promises humanity has ever imagined, that nothing truly ends, it only begins again, in a new form. The story of the phoenix is not only about fire, death, and rebirth, it is also about endurance. At its heart, the phoenix is a mirror of the human journey, a metaphor for how we face hardship and rise again after adversity. Think about it, every one of us, at some point, experiences moments that feel like burning to ashes. It might be the collapse of a dream we worked for years to achieve, the pain of losing someone we love, or the feeling of failure after giving everything we had. In those moments, it can feel as though we are finished, reduced to nothing. And yet, the phoenix reminds us that nothing is not the end, it is the ground from which something new can begin. This is why the phoenix has become a symbol of resilience. Just as the bird does not fear the fire, we too can step into life's challenges with courage. The flames of hardship may strip away what is old or broken, but they also prepare us for transformation. When we rise again, we are not the same as before, we are stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever. History is filled with examples of this phoenix-like spirit. Great leaders who endured defeat before achieving victory. Artists and inventors who faced rejection after rejection, only to create works that changed the world. Ordinary people who, after personal tragedy, found new strength to rebuild their lives and inspire others. Their stories echo the same truth: from ashes, greatness can emerge. But this idea is not only about external success, it is also about the inner life. Each of us carries battles that no one else sees, doubts, fears, or scars from the past. Sometimes these challenges weigh heavily, leaving us feeling small or powerless. The phoenix story speaks directly to those struggles. It tells us that even in our lowest moments, even when we feel burned out, we hold within us the possibility of renewal. We can begin again. That is why, across centuries, people have adopted the phoenix as a personal emblem. Soldiers wore it as a badge of courage. Cities rebuilt after disasters took it as a symbol of hope. Survivors of personal hardships, whether illness, loss, or failure, found in it a reminder that their story was not over. What makes the phoenix especially powerful is that it never hides the pain of transformation. The flames are real. The ashes are real. Rebirth does not come without struggle. And yet, that struggle is not meaningless, it is the very process that makes renewal possible. In the same way, our hardest trials often become the turning points that shape us most profoundly. So, when we hear the phrase "rise like a phoenix," it is not just a poetic image, it is a call to resilience. It is an invitation to believe that no matter how far we have fallen, no matter how much we have lost, we can stand again, and perhaps even soar higher than before. If resilience is one lesson of the phoenix, then the deeper spiritual meaning lies in how struggle itself can become a path to renewal. Hardship, in this sense, is not only something to survive, it is something that shapes us, cleanses us, and prepares us for a new beginning. The phoenix embodies this truth in the most vivid way. It does not escape the flames. It does not avoid the ashes. Instead, it walks directly into them, knowing that transformation cannot happen without passing through fire. In the same way, many spiritual traditions teach that growth often requires a kind of burning away. Old habits, fears, or attachments must be released before something new can take root. The process is rarely easy, but it is essential. We see this idea echoed across cultures. In Buddhism, suffering is seen not as meaningless, but as a teacher, something that can awaken wisdom and compassion. In Christianity, fire often symbolizes purification, the refining of the soul. In countless indigenous traditions, trials and rites of passage mark the shedding of one identity so that a new, stronger self can emerge. And in every case, the story of the phoenix provides the perfect imagery. Out of pain and loss, renewal is born. This is not just philosophy, it is something we can feel in our own lives. Think of times when hardship stripped away illusions, forcing us to confront who we truly are. Think of challenges that tested our patience, our faith, or our strength, but in the end revealed resilience we never knew we had. These are phoenix moments, times when we discover that what once felt like the end was really a doorway. The spiritual lesson here is not that suffering is desirable, but that it is transformative. Like fire, it burns, but it also clears the ground. It removes what no longer serves us, making space for growth we might never have imagined. In this way, the phoenix is less a story about destruction and more a story about preparation. The ashes are not symbols of defeat. They are the soil of renewal. This perspective can change the way we face difficulties. Instead of seeing them as meaningless obstacles, we can begin to see them as stages in a larger cycle. The loss we experience today may carry within it the seed of tomorrow's strength. The confusion we feel now may one day give birth to clarity. The struggle that seems endless may be forging a new beginning just beyond the horizon. That is the wisdom the phoenix has carried across centuries. Hardship is not the end of the story. It is the passage through which renewal arrives. The flames we fear can be the very thing that cleanses us. The ashes we dread can be the foundation of new life. So, as we look deeper into this legend, the phoenix is not only a bird of rebirth, it is a teacher. A teacher reminding us that every trial, no matter how painful, can hold within it the spark of transformation. If fire teaches renewal, and hardship teaches transformation, then the phoenix as a whole carries an even grander promise: immortality. Not immortality in the literal sense of never-ending flesh and bone, but immortality as a symbol, an eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth that never truly ends. The phoenix does not live a short span like ordinary birds. Ancient stories often describe it as living for hundreds of years, sometimes even 1,000. When its time finally comes, it does not fade away quietly. Instead, it bursts into flames, only to rise again. This endless cycle, life, death, ashes, rebirth, creates a pattern that repeats forever. And so, the phoenix becomes more than just a creature. It becomes a symbol of eternity. For many cultures, this idea was deeply comforting. In a world where empires fall and human lives are brief, the phoenix reminded people that something eternal exists beyond the chaos of time. Egyptians saw the phoenix, known to them as the Bennu bird, as linked to the sun itself, which dies each evening only to rise again each morning. Greeks and Romans saw it as proof that life, in some form, can always return. And later traditions embraced it as a metaphor for the soul's immortality, a promise that death is not the end. But let us think about why this vision of eternity matters. Human beings have always been aware of how fleeting life can feel. Days pass, seasons change, loved ones come and go, and each of us knows that our time is limited. The story of the phoenix does not deny that reality, but it reframes it. It tells us that endings are not absolute. Instead, they are transformations within a greater cycle that never ceases. The bird dies, but also lives again. The ashes mark not an end, but a renewal. Eternity is not a frozen moment, it is a rhythm that continues forever. This is why the phoenix became such a powerful symbol of hope. It represented more than survival. It represented continuity. Civilizations used it as a royal emblem, linking rulers to the eternal flame of renewal. Poets used it as a metaphor for love that never dies. And even today, the phoenix remains a symbol for organizations, movements, and individuals who want to express endurance through the ages. There is also something profoundly personal about this vision of immortality. Each of us, in our own way, seeks to leave something behind that lasts, whether through family, through creativity, through kindness, or through ideas. The phoenix reassures us that even though the form may change, the essence continues. Just as the bird's ashes give rise to new life, so too can our actions, our words, and our spirit echo long after we are gone. In this way, the phoenix's immortality is not about escaping time. It is about embracing the truth that life is eternal because it is always renewing itself. The cycle never ends, and in that cycle, there is both comfort and wonder. If immortality made the phoenix a symbol of eternity, then hope is what made it beloved. Beyond its fire and its endless rebirth, the phoenix became a reminder that no matter how dark the night, no matter how heavy the despair, there is always a way to rise again. Hope is what turns the phoenix from a distant myth into something deeply human. Imagine standing in a time of hardship. Your world seems broken, the future uncertain, and the weight of loss almost unbearable. The image of a radiant bird rising from its ashes tells you something simple yet powerful: this is not the end. No matter how far you have fallen, there is a path forward. That message has carried across generations, giving strength to those who needed it most. This is why the phoenix appears again and again in stories of resilience. For people who endured war, famine, or disaster, the phoenix was more than a legend. It was a promise that renewal could follow ruin. For individuals facing personal struggles, whether illness, failure, or grief, the phoenix offered the courage to keep moving forward. It whispered, even from ashes, you can begin again. In this way, the phoenix is not just about survival, it is about transformation into something greater. Rising from ashes is not returning to what was lost. It is becoming stronger, brighter, more radiant than before. That is what hope does. It lifts us not just back to where we were, but to a higher place we might never have reached without the trial. Think of how this imagery appears in culture. Cities rebuilt after destruction often adopt the phoenix as their emblem, declaring to the world, we will not be defeated. Movements for justice and renewal have used the bird as their banner, a signal that change is possible even after long suffering. And countless individuals have carried the phoenix in art, in tattoos, in words, as a personal reminder of their own resilience. But hope is not only about strength in extraordinary circumstances. It is also about the everyday challenges we all face. The phoenix reminds us that when plans fail, when opportunities vanish, when disappointment burns us down to ashes, that moment can be the spark of something new. It tells us not to surrender, but to trust in renewal. What makes this so powerful is that hope is contagious. When one person rises from their ashes, others see it and believe they can do the same. The phoenix is therefore not only a personal symbol, but a communal one. It lifts entire communities, entire generations, with the promise that despair is never final. So when we look at the phoenix, shimmering in firelight and spreading its wings, what we are truly seeing is the embodiment of hope. Hope that tomorrow can be brighter than today. Hope that strength lies hidden even in our weakest moments. Hope that no matter what we endure, we can always rise again. We have seen the phoenix as fire, as rebirth, as resilience, as immortality, and as hope. But perhaps its greatest power lies in this: it is universal. Across time and cultures, people who never met, who spoke different languages and lived on different continents, all told stories that echo the same truth. The phoenix, or something like it, appears everywhere, as if humanity itself needed this image to explain life's deepest mysteries. In ancient Egypt, it was the Bennu bird, linked to the sun god Ra, rising each morning as the world's eternal flame. In Greece, the phoenix was described by Herodotus and later philosophers as a fiery creature of dazzling colors, renewing itself in cycles of centuries. In Rome, it became a political emblem, used to represent the eternal spirit of the empire. But the story did not stop there. In China, there is the fenghuang, often called the Chinese phoenix, a bird of virtue, grace, and cosmic balance. Though different in details, it carried the same idea of renewal and harmony. In Hindu mythology, the Garuda, though not exactly the phoenix, also carries themes of immortality and spiritual strength. Even in Native American traditions, there are birds of fire and thunder that echo the same cycle of life, destruction, and rebirth. What does this tell us? That the phoenix is not just one culture's myth, but a shared archetype, a symbol born from the human need to make sense of change, loss, and renewal. Whether by desert, by ocean, or by mountain, people everywhere saw the same cycles in nature: the rising sun, the changing seasons, the regrowth after fire, the resilience after hardship. And so, in different forms, they imagined the same bird. That universality is what gives the phoenix its timeless power. We may no longer live in ancient temples or sit by Roman firesides, but the message of the phoenix still speaks to us. It still tells us that endings are not final, that new life can follow loss, and that hope can rise even from ashes. That is why the phoenix remains alive in modern storytelling, in novels, in films, in music, in art. It has never faded because it carries a truth that never changes. And so, as we close our journey through this legend, let us remember, the phoenix is not only about a mythical bird. It is about us. It is about the resilience of the human spirit, the cycles of nature, the fire of transformation, the promise of renewal, and the hope of eternity. It is about the fact that across the world, across history, we all share the same longing to believe that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come, and no matter how final the ashes, life will rise again. The phoenix is not just a myth. It is a mirror of humanity's greatest hope, that we, too, can always be reborn. And so, our journey with the phoenix comes to an end. From fire and ashes to renewal and hope, we have seen how this legendary bird has inspired countless generations, not because it was real in the physical sense, but because it is real in spirit. It reminds us that no matter how great the loss, no matter how final the ending may seem, life always finds a way to begin again. The phoenix is not just a creature of myth, it is a reflection of us. Of the struggles we face, the challenges we endure, and the resilience we carry within. Its flames teach us that hardship can purify, its ashes remind us that endings are never final, and its rebirth shows us that hope always returns. Across cultures, across centuries, the phoenix has carried the same timeless message: rise, again and again, stronger than before. So the next time you feel like everything has burned away, remember the phoenix. Remember that even in your darkest hour, there is the possibility of a new dawn waiting just beyond the ashes. Thank you so much for joining me in today's story. If you enjoyed this journey into myth and meaning, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who might need a little reminder of hope and resilience today. Until next time, take care, keep rising, and may you always find the strength of the phoenix within yourself.